Welcome to Pirate Living Podcast. We are your hosts, Karan and Kristen. On this podcast, we are highlighting ordinary people living extraordinary lives. These are pirates who take small, bold actions daily to create social change. Pirate life is all about rebelling and breaking the rules for good. Creating lasting social change starts by first breaking our inner rules. After all, the hardest rules to break are your own. The pirates we highlight have dedicated themselves to creating good trouble.
Today we are talking with Matt Clark. Matt is a London-born high school PE teacher, mindset coach, father of 5, and Movnat trainer based in Madrid, Spain. He helps men develop a solid mindset to thrive in life and for their loved ones. He is passionate about health and personal development and loves supporting others on their own journey of personal growth. Matt also loves cooking, podcasts, books, playing with his kids, great conversations, and moving in nature. And Matt, we're happy to have you here talking with us today.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here.
Having a mouthful there with your intro. And we're now that my mouth is warmed up, we like to have Google AI write a little poem for our guests. So would you like to hear what Google wrote about you?
Sure.
So Matt Clark, the pirate, lives in Madrid, Spain. He's a teacher, a coach, and a father of 5. He's passionate about health and personal development, and he loves helping others on their own journeys. He's a true inspiration and a role model for us all. So thank you, Matt Clark, for being a pirate. You're making the world a better place, one small, bold action at a time.
That was beautiful. Thank you, Google. And thanks for reading that, Kristen. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I see Google's given up on rhyming.
Oh yeah, it was rhyming there for a little while for us, but it is also it gives a lot of gratitude within each poem that it's written, and I like it. It's like it boosts you up, and then also is very expressive of gratitude. So it's been fun having it write the poems.
Well, I feel boosted.
So yeah, Matt, we'd love for you to take us on your pirate journey. Like what led you to where you are today?
Wow. Thank you for that question. How far back do you go with this? I mean, if you'd have seen me as a kid, if you'd have been a fly on the wall in the classroom, you'd have seen a little blonde boy who liked to stir up trouble. I was a prankster as a kid. After my mum and dad, they were always playing pranks on each other. I like to push the limits with my teachers as well. But having done some of the work on my own stories, I've also come to realize that was, in a way, that was my way of keeping safe, right? Because I grew up in quite a rough part of West London, or at least that was the story, was that it was a rough part of West London. In hindsight, it wasn't that bad. But the talk around the playground, especially among the boys, was, who's the toughest? Who's the hardest? That's the way the kids used to talk. Oh yeah, Billy's harder than Kevin. No way, shut up. Kevin's well harder than Billy. And this would play out. There'd be a lot of actual fist fights in the playground. And I didn't want anything to do with it. I wasn't raised as a fighter. Didn't really have a very aggressive side to me, and I was tiny. I was one of the smallest kids in school. So my way of keeping off the big bad bully boy radar was to be a little bit naughty. You know what I mean? Just to sort of be in their camp a little bit. Like he's all right. But it was definitely me playing the part of being the person I thought other people wanted me to be. So kind of a follower kind of energy to that. And that went on all the way through. I mean, I was very sporty. I played a lot of sport as a kid. So I was quite clean cut really into health and fitness through my early teens. And then when I realized I wasn't going to turn pro or be the best in my sport, which was squash, and around about that time as well, started to be interested in girls and going out to pies and all that kind of stuff. I switched across to hockey, field hockey, not ice hockey, but I found that to be a much more social scene. In actual fact, if it's the same in where you're from, but in the UK, unless your sports team is on its trajectory to being elite, it's there can often be a lot of drinking involved with these sports teams as well. And that was what I found. And because I started a brand new sport, I was a beginner, I was rubbish, which meant I was in the fourth team, which was basically me, a couple of young guys, and some, old boys who were just there for the social. And I do remember talking to one of these guys, and I looked up to this guy. And I would have been about 17, on the verge of going to university. And I thought this guy had everything dialed in, like he was a role model to me. And, he had the car, wife, job, house, kid on the way. And I was talking about, like, I'm going to go to university next year. I'm not sure where to go. I'm not sure what to study. And this guy, he could have been a great role model in that moment, but he chose to be a really negative role model. His advice was, don't worry about it, mate. I'm so jealous. University were the best years of my life. I was, drunk half the time, barely saw the inside of the library like 3 times. It doesn't really matter where you go, just so long as you have a good time. It doesn't really matter what you study, just so long as you get a degree. And, I'm projecting onto this one dude because I remember that moment, but that was the cultural message for a lot of people my age, or at least the people in my world, was do that. And I was receptive to that, and that's what I did. So I went off to university and had a great time, partied a lot, drank a lot, did get a degree, studied sports science. Actually, I really liked it. I was fascinated by it, but I didn't really give it as much as I should have. So again, more of that follower energy, which carried on through to graduation, into London, where I moved back to live with my parents. Got a job I didn't really like, sales. I was a estate agent for a while. And eventually the party just went on too long for me. And I realized that what I was doing, I was going out, partying, trying to convince the world that I was all okay and tell myself that I was having fun and everything was all right. But on the inside, things were starting to go a little bit dark. And the very first inclination that I got that things were going off the rails and I needed to sort myself out, I'd got to a point where I was notoriously losing stuff. Like I would lose wallets, phones, keys, and it was getting embarrassing. You know what I mean? Like my mates would be like, "How many phones you on this year, mate?" Like, like if there's not a warning sign, like where you're ordering, your 6th new mobile phone in the space of a year, then you're not paying attention. And I wasn't. Instead, what I was doing is I was thinking, okay, how can I make sure I don't lose this stuff? So I would attach my phone, my wallet, my keys to my belt buckle with like a cord of some kind. And I'd been out this one night, I forget where, but I know I'd come home by train. And I come home on the first train, not the last train. I got the first train home the next day. So it's daylight. Everyone else is going to work, and I'm stumbling home, doing the walk of shame. And I get to the door at my mum and dad's house. And I reach into my pockets to get my keys, and the keys aren't there. And I look down, and swinging by my knees is my wallet, my phone, my keys. And I just look down and I think, this is a mess, dude. Like, what are you doing? Like this can't continue. I just didn't know what I was going to do, and mum being observant and mum being mum, like she started to, she saw a window, because in the outside world, I was just projecting out like this happy-go-lucky guy. Everything was fine. But inside, back at home, in my room or whatever, it was getting pretty dark. So I got some help. And that was good at mum's request. And there was some medication involved for that. And then I had this crazy adventure that occurred. We went to a festival. I love going to music concerts, and there was this festival that was going on in Serbia, and it was actually my idea to go. 15 friends decided to say yes, so it was a big crowd, we all had to make our way to Serbia, and it involved a stop off in Budapest. So we flew into Budapest. We had, a night in a hotel there, and then we caught the first train to go across country into Serbia. We thought we were pretty smart because we caught the train early on we caught the train at the first stop, right? And as the train rolled into the central station in Budapest, everybody piled on. We thought we were clever because we had gotten ourselves a nice seat. And as we rolled into the central station, everybody piled in, and the train staff disconnected the carriage that we were in, told us we had to get out and that we would have to pile in further up. Now, in my infinite wisdom, I had decided, listen, you've got to get past this thing of losing your stuff. You're going to have to take precautions. You're going overseas, and so I had everything in a bum bag. I think you call it a fanny pack, right? Mm-hmm. So wallet, keys, travel tickets, the whole lot's in there. And in this moment, we're rushing to get our spot into the carriage further up. And the stuff goes missing. And it's kind of like at this point, it's just ridiculous. And I'm panicking, and I go back into the carriage trying to find it. I can only hope that one of my mates has picked it up, but we're all separated at this point. I mean, to say it's crowded, this train, like when I got in there, one guy was like in the baggage compartment, laying horizontally above everyone's head, because I didn't even know you could fit there. But that's what it was like on this train. So I got on just hoping that my stuff was there. Started to mingle and push my way through the crowd, trying to find where all my mates were, and got all the way to the other end. Nobody had my stuff. Zigzagged all the way back through the train. Took me a good while. Got to my friends at the back of the train. Nobody knows where my bag is. And I'm starting to get really, really worried. And eventually this guy, he's a stranger, he just taps me on the shoulder and he says, look, I've heard what's going on, but it's not a good idea for you to try and cross the border into Serbia without a passport. That's not a good idea. And I mean, I didn't know much about the political situation there at the time, but I had to trust this feedback that I was getting from this dude. So I jumped off the train at the very next stop. And then this ridiculous situation goes on. I'm running up the platform trying to scrounge some money off one of my mates, and I managed to get 30 euros here, and another buddy gives me a mobile phone, and all the while I'm running alongside the moving train to get phone numbers and codes and all of this to be able to actually get back to my mates, because I wouldn't let anyone come back with me. I was like, I've got to go back to Budapest. I've got to try and sort this out. I wasn't going to let my mistake ruin everybody else's holiday. And I was literally running alongside this moving train trying to punch in some phone numbers so that I'd be able to get back to them. And as the train went away, I'm just in the middle of nowhere. I mean, I'm literally in the middle of nowhere. I don't know where, but a tiny little village on the Hungarian and Serbian border somewhere. And I got 30 euros. It's about $30, and a phone, and one phone number in this phone that would actually connect me back to my group of friends. And I want to just drop to my knees and like cry at this point. So I don't know what I'm going to do. And this feeling that I'd been having, this sort of depression, was what it was diagnosed as, but like now I would actually say all the way up to that point I had a victim mentality. That was really what was going on with me. I'd let my mates help me out, I'd let my family bail me out, all of that kind of stuff, and here I was now forced into a situation where I've got to bail myself out. And then that exact moment, I get another tap on the shoulder, and this time it's the friend of the guy who wanted me to get off the train, and he doesn't speak a word of English, so he signals for me to follow. So off we go in silence, and he walks me through this tiny little village, takes me to a shop, buys me a bottle of water, buys me a loaf of bread, some sandwich meat, and a packet of chewing. And he walks me back to the station. He speaks some words in Hungarian to the guy who's selling the tickets there, and I'm given a free ticket to go back to. He then walks me to the platform, and he shows me where I need to wait, and he puts his hand on my shoulder one last time, and he says the only words of our entire relationship. He just puts his hand on my shoulder and says, "Good luck." And it just, like, even now, like right now, as I say that gives me goosebumps, because it shifted me out of this mindset that, like, oh, woe is me, the world's out to get, like nothing goes right for me. It was just this little act of kindness from a complete stranger in a foreign land shifted me into, you know what? I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to take action. I'm just going to put one foot in front of the other, and I'm going to do whatever it is I can to solve this situation, and with my head up, because I would say that I'd have my head buried in the sand, waiting for somebody else to solve my problems for me. And these circumstances just kicked me out of that funk immediately. And as soon as I lifted my head up, the next bit of help came. The next person I met was this heavy metal 6'4", 16-year-old kid. And I got to talking to him. He wanted to practice his English. And, I explained my situation. He said, you know what, you need to talk to my dad. His dad was like a high up managerial figure in the public transport company in Budapest. We went straight to him. He was able to make some calls and find out if the bag had been handed in. And I quickly figured out it hadn't. So I'm pretty much sure it's been stolen. And he gives me a pass to be able to travel on the public transport for free while I sort myself out. So I'm thinking, wow, the angels are really shining down on me here. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do still, but people are helping me out, and it's good. And this guy takes me off to go and find a hostel. The people in the hostel there were very kind. They said, listen, pay us when you can. Pay us when you can. Okay, cool. So I go into my hostel, and again, it just goes on and on. Like this adventure lasted 4 days. Meeting people, making moves, trying to get some of my own money wired back to me. Eventually I do get some money wired to myself. I get a new passport from the embassy, and I hightail it to catch the last train back out to Serbia, and I do. And I catch that train, and I get back across country, and I'm eventually able to use this one phone number to call my buddy Dickie and catch up with my friends, and it was great. And when I went back, when I got back home, I set about making changes in my life, like changes that really meant something. I quit my job, eventually found my way into teaching. I started out helping kids with disabilities, working in a school there, loved the school environment, and decided I wanted to become a teacher. And that's where I began my career as a teacher in secondary physical education. The whole thing reignited this passion that I'd had as a kid for health and wellness, and so that became my passion and interest for personal development work that I'm still very much interested in today, and ultimately is what led me to become a coach. So I don't know if that answers the question. I don't know if we've got any time left in the podcast, because I've prattled on for a while. But thank you for asking.
Yes, we do have time.
Cool. Yeah, so, the story really meant a lot to me. Like that moment shifted a lot, and I still think about it very fondly. Like if that guy hadn't bought me some water and a chewing gum and a sandwich, I don't know what would happen. It's funny how life is.
Yeah. Well, and you brought up too, like, something we like to talk about is no one's coming to save you ultimately. Like, if you're always looking to be rescued, you need to stop, because you are the one that needs to save yourself. And that, like, it was an extreme moment for you, but you got to that realization of, yeah, I'm not going to be rescued by somebody else out of this situation. I need to save myself. And then once you came to that realization, you started getting all these people and noticing all these people around you helping. And yeah, that's quite a 4-day journey too.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it was cool. I mean, no, the same t-shirt, shorts, t-shirt, and flip-flops, 4 days. When I got back to where my friends were, I mean, I was famous at that point. Basically infamous, because somebody who I didn't even know recognized me because I had a ridiculous t-shirt, very recognizable t-shirt. And some complete stranger was like, "It's the dude that got off the train," and there was a bit of a cheer and everything. So yeah, it was good. It was fun in the end, and I wouldn't change it for anything.
One of the things I really like about your story, and I'm going to quote Mr. Rogers here.
Okay.
And one of the things he always says is look for the helpers. And so while, yes, no one is coming to save you, there are people there, like there are helpers out there, people that want to help and do good. And I really appreciate in that story that you allowed yourself to accept the help from the helpers. And, we talk a lot about having your pirate crew, because, even though we have to take the actions ourselves, you need a crew to get shit done. Like we can't do it all on our own. So it's really cool that all through that story you had the helpers, and I really appreciate those type of people too, to help out a stranger.
Yeah, me too. I think it's very cyclical as well, because having done some of this work now, since getting into the lifting coaching stuff that we're all a part of, I realized that some part of that allowing others to come and not just rescue. It expands further from that. Like I wouldn't usually be the one to organize the event. You know what I mean? I wouldn't usually be the one to decide where we eat or any of that. So it was very small decisions because I wasn't trusting myself to do it better than the other people. And I didn't really want the responsibility. And so that was emanating out of, into everything that I was doing. And so how was I going to trust myself to do something bold or something grand or something, called a mission or purpose in life? Didn't trust myself in that state. And yeah, it made such a big difference, just giving myself permission, like you say, to take help, but be the one that's actively going out and finding it, head up, and actively seeking it and receiving it.
Yeah. And now you're working in education. So you get to have that opportunity to be that mentor that you at one point in time wished you had. So yeah, tell us a little bit about that too.
My work in education.
Yeah.
Yep. How that's going. Yeah. I mean, I started out in as a PE teacher. I still am a PE teacher. I do a bit more now. Started out in the UK and had a good mentorship there, working in schools in London and worked in 2 or 3 different schools there. What I will say is that some other patterns started to come in, some other pirate moments to realize, because I don't think it's just going to be one moment where you have to break free of the shackles that you're creating for yourself. I think you break free of one set and then you realize, oh, hang on a minute, I'm also chained down a little bit over here as well, and I need to deal with this. I always wanted to travel, right? A lot. I wanted to see the world, or at least go to some exotic places. And there was a conflict there because my career was going well in London as a teacher, and I was at a school where there were prospects. I was already being recognized, and there were other people who had gone along that career path as well and been really, really successful there. And I could see myself 8 years down the line being at that school, being married. I was with a girlfriend at the time, and it was going okay. And that was the thing, is everything was sort of okay, right? It wasn't my dream. Like I wanted to just put a backpack on and not have any agenda. I wanted to go out into the world. And I put that off for a while, right? And again, it's another example of where sometimes you're your own worst enemy, and the change that you feel are around you because of life circumstances, they're just made up. It's just you. That's exactly what it was for me. And eventually it was just like, no, you know what? I've got to make a change here again. I recognize what this feels like. This time I don't need to be lost in Eastern Europe. Like this time I'm actually recognizing the feels, and you know what, you just need to take one bold step that removes a bunch of other decisions. Buy a plane ticket to Costa Rica and quit your job. Boom. Everything else is it's done after that. I mean, so yeah, that was my first couple of years, the start of my career. And then since then, I traveled around Central America for a bit, and then I taught English, just to pay my way as I was backpacking. And then I came back to Europe and got a job at an international school here in Madrid, and I've been there ever since. And now what I do, in addition to teaching PE, I also oversee the performance faculty, which encompasses art, music. We hope to expand into drama at some point soon. We'll be going to a new site, a new bigger school with more facilities, and I still oversee the PE department as well. So I've got a team now, and so I mentor not just students, but I also have a hand in mentoring the professional development of my colleagues as well.
Well, you were saying that, you just reminded me, we talked to a pirate that we actually met through the How to Be More pirate book called Lefteris Heretakis. And I believe he's in Spain and he works in the arts and on the university level. But yeah, you just reminded me that there's a pirate near you who's working in arts. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah, so I don't even know if I answered your question there, but just that brought me up to that was 2012 when I came here. And again, I didn't really plan to stay in Madrid. I didn't have any definite plans, but I got this job which I really liked and decided to stick it out for a little while. And being in Madrid, that was still an adventure for me. This was a place where I could get to still experience the thrill of being in a new place, a foreign land, and get to know that culture whilst being just a hop, skip, and a jump away from the UK. And it was much easier to keep in touch with friends and family there. And then, as often is the case, met the love of my life, and got into that relationship very quickly, and things really, that was a roller coaster, because my partner Esther, she had 3 kids already from a previous marriage, and so I kind of very quickly, was in a position where I'm committing to a stepfather role, which is amazing, and I've learned a lot along the way as in my time there. And since then, 2 more kids we've had, so we now got 5. So we live in a big house in the country, just outside of Madrid. We're not in the city. It's all 7 of us, and whoever else comes to dinner, which is usually, at this point, my older ones, they're teenagers. They'll bring their boyfriends and girlfriends. So we've often got 10 at the table, and I'm the chef as well.
So how did you start going from the teacher and education role? How did that morph also into coaching?
Yeah, good. Thank you. So being being very interested in personal development, psychology, philosophy, even spirituality as well, but also health and fitness and all of that stuff. And taking all these deep dives with books and podcasts for my own curiosity and for my own health journey, and in some way for that of my family as well. I began to feel like actually this is really where my passion is. And of course, as a PE teacher, some of that filters in, and there's a lot that you can do with the platform as a teacher, but I don't get to entirely write the script within a curriculum setting. There are restrictions there as to how to bring that in. And I was looking for a platform, a medium through which I could really share all of my unique curiosities as a learner and experiences as someone who's been a teacher, been a father, relationship. And essentially, I decided I really wanted to be the kind of coach that I could have done with 5-10 years ago. And so I began looking for a methodology that that suited my style, that would align with my curiosities. I don't know. I imagine you guys know that there's a guy called Captain Taylor Morgan. Do you know that guy?
I've heard of him.
Yeah, he was. I reached out online. I was in a couple of different online communities, and I was just asking, and are there any coaching qualifications that people would recommend? Tons of people recommended the Czech stuff, and I was like, yeah, I could go in that direction. And then Captain Taylor Morgan recommended this thing in Lifted, and he described it as being like Joe Dispenza with a pen, and that touched me. I was like, this one sounds really cool. And so I started taking the deep dive into the free material that was out there for Enlifted, and loved it. And pretty soon after, I was signed up to level 1, and yeah, I just love it. I absolutely love it. It was fantastic.
And that you've been using what you've learned with like in your one-on-one coaching and also within the classroom. So yeah, how has that shifted for you in the education, looking at mindset work, and how are you using it with your students?
Well, to begin with, the first shift, the first wave of that was for me. It was very much for me. And that started to permeate out in the way that I was showing up as a teacher. It's a challenging job, and it made me a better teacher. First of all, it made me a better father and a partner and all the rest of it. And I began sharing the stuff with my colleagues and with the other adults in my life, doing workshops at the school, trying to really illuminate the power of the words for my colleagues and anyone else who would listen, really. And now I do have a project going on at the moment where we're doing, I guess you call it like the way of the enlifted student, really. I'm still looking for a name. That almost feels like plagiarism, but take out the almost. It feels like plagiarism, but it's a good little project because I've been given we've been given 2 hours a week. I've got a small team, and we call it the enrichment program. So essentially, this is kind of for, I guess they are, let's see, they'd be 6th graders, right? And so what we're working towards at the moment, what I've got at the moment is we read a book. We'll pick a book, and then we'll use that book as a platform to explore ideas like resilience and mental toughness and grit and all these other aspects of mindset. The one we're using at the moment is one of the kids' books written by Jocko Willink. He wrote some kids' books as well, which are pretty cool. So we read that, and then we'll do some physical challenges, and then we'll do some mindset stuff. And I've been doing that for a couple of years, and now this year I'm also bringing in language games, the Enlifted language games, and we're doing a lot of work on soft talk, solid talk, and projection language as well. I hear so many projections in the playground. In fact, I think you give an example of this in one of your books as well. It's like he did that on purpose, she's doing that on purpose. It's so common, and when you can get it right, and you can have a kid, you can right, let's calm down, let's breathe,
Mm-hmm.
let's slow it down here a little bit. You know, did they really do that on purpose? Or they did that by accident.
Mm-hmm.
Did it hurt? Yeah. Did you graze your knee? Yeah. Did they set out with the goal of grazing your knee? Unlikely, and working those translations in the moment's been really fun to see. So the project that I've got going on at the moment, although I'm having to do this remotely because I've just had knee surgery, so it's not ideal. I'm off school at the minute. But yeah, the last one was to have the kids actually write a script of their own, and turn that into a little piece of drama. So that they've created their own scenes where there's a situation and they have to use some conflict language. They have to project and they have to use some sort of binary language. He's always doing this. They're never listening to me. And present it to a class with an intervention that translates that into something far more productive, far more real, and a whole lot better for everybody. So yeah.
A few things that went in that, because having worked in education as well, like first when I started really looking at like how I was being a victim to my job, just in general. And I started to realize how, like, in my head, I'm thinking like, they don't care about my life outside of work. And it was all this, they, like, they don't care that I have a life. And then after I started to learn about my words, I stopped myself. I was like, who is this they? And I'm totally expecting to have an image of my two bosses. That's two people, that's they. There was no one that came to mind at all. And I was like, this very invisible they are very much in charge of how I'm feeling throughout my day. Like this is ridiculous. But once I started to realize that, it calmed me down in the classroom, despite whatever chaos was happening, whether it's teachers calling out throughout the day. And now I have no idea if I'm going to even get off work on time or what the day will look like. I was able to be more calm in my classroom. And when I was more calm, the behaviors that I had been dealing with started to drop. And I was like, whoa. So a good chunk of this stuff that I was dealing with was all because of like how I was stressing myself out. So yeah, that like when starting to realize the role that we play in our own lives and our own heads can impact around us, like can make you a better person to the people around you. And that spoke to me. And then also like the projections, they'll start really, really young. Like I was working with 5-year-olds and there were even 3-year-olds in the center that are like, it's his fault, he did that to me, or she did this. They start really young. They pick those up early.
So. Yeah, big time. For me, it was the negations. For me personally, the whole thing was negations. It was like, I was so afraid of somebody calling me out and picking apart anything that I was putting out into the world. So I would go on this long monologue of saying, oh, it's not that, and it's not this, it's not that. So I'm just really what I'm doing is I'm going through a checklist of anticipated critiques of what it was I was going to put out, getting ahead of the criticism and doing it for myself, so that by the end of it, I could say it's this, and hopefully keep everything else and not be publicly called out. Like, what is that? That was what it was for me. And so, yeah, getting back to your question, I'm still just exploring. I'm early days with this. I feel like I've been a coach, in reality for a long time. I've been a coach in the very classic sports team coach. I've coached football and basketball for as long as I've been in education. And the further into my career I've gone, I've also been a coach and a mentor to other teachers. And circling back to your question, why get into coaching? I came to find that this is particularly true among my male friends. It's one of the reasons why I'm particularly keen now to work with young men. I don't rule out working with women, but I feel like I've got something specific to offer there as someone who's gone through, a lot of the typical challenges that men face in life, work, and relationships, and all of that. There was among my friends, among my close friends, and I'm lucky to have a good number of people I could call on when the shit hits the fan. Actually, my partner explained it best. She said when we first got together, Esther and I, one of the things she absolutely loved about spending time with me and my friends was that we could talk silly, could talk shit and just cut it up like that and go deep when we really wanted to. And it would be this sort of ebb and flow between going really, really deep, putting the world to rights, discussing philosophy and psychology and all of this stuff, as well as the fart jokes and all the rest of it, the silly stuff. And she had not seen much of that before. And I think that a lot of people feel, they have to just stay in one camp. It's you can't go deep with your buddy, especially I think guys. I believe guys have a harder time getting into the deeper stuff. But as I've grown and my friends around me have grown, I've become one of those people that they will call when they really want someone to, talk straight with them. When they want good advice, when they want someone to ask them the right questions. And there's also been times where I don't hear from them. And that's equally a sign that something's going on in their life. And they're not calling me, they're calling the people who are going to tell them what they want to hear. And they're putting off that call with me because they know I'm not going to tell them what they want to hear. I'm going to ask them what needs to be asked. And that's not always easy to do, but it is what needs to be done in my opinion. If you're going to be a good friend, if you're going to be someone who calls the people in your life forwards. I've certainly needed it along the way, and I'm grateful to the people that have done it with me. And I gradually began to recognize that as a skill that I had, and that gave me more of the confidence to step into an official coaching role and do this professionally.
Yeah, I think we've talked about this a little bit on this show before as well. We've talked a little. We've actually had someone talk about the loneliness epidemic and how important creating community is. And one of the things that we had discussed was the fact that I know in my life, especially like older men, there seems to be so much loneliness and so much dependence on like their wives for any sort of like socialness. Like if I look at my dad doesn't have friends. My dad spends time with my mom's friends' husbands because they're over with their wives. And so even just having someone, whether that's a coach or a friend, like you said, asking the right questions, and having those more deeper level conversations, like I think that also goes a long way to fight that like loneliness when you can actually open up to someone about the like important things that are actually happening in your life, and not just these like surface level friends that you spend time with because your wives are together. And I think that is so important.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I've heard it. I don't know what the exact statistics are, but I hear statistics floating around. I think, particularly in the US, that the average man has got like less than one close friend that they would feel that they could call on in a crisis, or to share on a deep level. That's shocking. That's that's shocking. And suicide rates are higher than they've ever been. And loneliness is a real killer. And it makes me think back to that point about seeking help is not only okay, it's the best thing that you can do to, you know, because I think there's this idea that self-care is somehow selfish, you know, that receiving help is weakness, and that has to be broken. You know, that's definitely a big part of the sort of the rhetoric that I would like to be part of breaking. It's not only selfless, it's essential. You know, if you can reach out for help and that person is able to help you level up, then you become someone who's also elevated, and you can do the same thing for others. You know, it's all reaching out and helping one another, because it's a messed up world, and you know, the more that we can do to help each other along the way, the better. And the sooner the better that we can start shifting minds around that. I think, you know, we're gonna be seeing some positive change. So yeah, I think it's very important that we break the mold. I you know, with men and with women, but I know that I can speak to men. I know I can speak to my own personal experience, having gone through that quite toxic environment at school, where it's all about, you know, just solving problems with your fists. That was my first introduction to the tribe, if you like. And I didn't fare very well there, so I played a role, one that I thought would keep me safe, and so much unraveled, as you very nicely gave me the opportunity to do at the beginning of the show. So yeah,
I think, I mean, there's an additional layer these days in the fact that I think women are no longer necessarily willing to do that emotional labor for men. And kind of, you know, there's, I don't know, I see all these like memes like, oh, you women are going to die alone with your cats, and I'm like, yeah, don't threaten me with a good time. But like, I think that is even exacerbating what this loneliness epidemic of men and depression, as like we've get like this rise in that like incel culture, because now that crutch of the women doing all that emotional labor for men is slipping away, and they're having to figure out how to manage on their own. So I think it's even more important that there are like, groups or coaches or ways for men to figure their shit out, frankly.
Yeah, I agree. I couldn't agree more. I mean, and it I know it gets a bit icky that you know, you say men's work, and that can be that can bring up different, that has a lot of connotations to it. You know, and I just want to help people. Really, I just want to help people. If my knowledge, my life experience, and the tools that I've got are the right fit for that person in that moment, then brilliant. Whether, you know, that's not age dependent, it's not gender dependent. It's just, for me, I like I say, I feel that I can talk the language of young men, in particular men around my age and younger, and you know, my experiences as well as my tools can be particularly valuable there. Yeah, but much more needed, and everyone everyone can feel free to reach out for help wherever they need it, and it's okay to say I'm not all right. You know, if you're not feeling good, you know, don't lie, don't pretend you are. You know, you might have to pick your moment, you know, to emotionally unload. If you're about to go into a, you know, important board meeting, that's not the moment to unload. But like, you know, if somebody asks you how you're doing, and you have the opportunity to say, well, you know what, I'm not great right now. You know, I'm not sure that now's the right time to talk about it, but I'm not okay. You know, and you can circle back to that. And equally, You can be the person who says, really, you really fine? You know what I mean? If you sense that it's not, ask. If you and we can start to, be active participants in being the listener and being the speaker in those kind of environments and those moments, because I think they're really important.
Mm-hmm. One of the things we talk a lot about is good trouble. And I'm wondering if you could tell me, what does good trouble mean to you, and how are you creating good trouble in the world?
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good trouble. That is the essence. I read the book as well. I loved it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, for me, it is breaking your own bonds first, breaking your own shackles. As we've talked about, that's the image that comes up for me, and so that means getting pattern interrupts. That means getting out your own way, and it means having the courage and giving yourself the permission to go and do things that are just for you, really. Do it in your way. And for me, traveling, breaking out of the job that I didn't like, creating a coaching style that's uniquely mine, a teaching style that's uniquely mine, designing curriculum within school that very much is, aligned with my values. That's pirate. That's good trouble as far as I'm concerned, because, I'm not asking for permission very often these days in my life, even in school. And I work in a corporate, my school is part of a big international group of schools, and I'm done with asking permission. I'll take the slap on the wrist if it comes, and I encourage my colleagues to do the same, because if you know what's right for your student, if you know what's right for your coaching client, then I think we need to have the courage to do what we feel is the right thing in the right moment. So there's that. What trouble am I creating? I mean, you know what? For me, again, I had to get over my own fear of being seen. That was a real breakthrough for me, just to start doing different things within the school environment. These workshops that I've been doing, these are enlifted workshops. I did the level 2, and we're encouraged to go, and in fact, we're required assignment to go and do a workshop. I've done a bunch of them now. I had friends and colleagues come out of there and say, that's the best piece of professional development I've ever been involved with. And I'm not even sure you could call that professional development. I don't know what that was. Like, I've never been to a teacher workshop at school and cried or felt like I really got into something deep that was going to help me transform in some way. So that's my good trouble. I'm really enjoying doing group work in the school setting. And I'm just loving the one-to-one stuff that I get to do with clients as well.
And where can people go to find you, especially if they want to reach out for one-to-one or just to chat with you?
Yeah, it's Matt Clark Coaching on Instagram. I imagine there'll be a link somewhere below in your notes. That's the best place to find me. And you can book a call if you want to, if you want to, have a quick chat and find out if there's chemistry, if you've liked the sound of the things that I'm doing. If you're involved in education, if you're a pirate involved in education, if you're a coach and any of this resonates, I'm always keen to jam on ideas and find out other ways to make good trouble. So again, you can book in a call for that as well, or just reach out to me in the DMs.
And we like to end with the question of, what advice or recommendation do you have for our listeners for going about or starting their own pirate journey?
Yeah. Well, I would say, to begin with, it's great to look to others for inspiration and not comparison. Look to who you were, look to who you are today, and be a little bit better. Yeah, because those micro steps, booking a plane ticket, sending an email to my colleagues to say I'm going to do a mindset workshop, right? Those will seem infinitesimally small compared to the people that you hold up on a pedestal who have done, big, audacious things. And that can be a real, that can be a little trap I've found is comparing yourself to others. But if you compare yourself to where you were, if you look at the things that you've already achieved and celebrate what that meant, that you've done hard things to get yourself to this point, and that next little thing that might seem little by somebody else's standards, it matters. And you keep doing those little things, and pretty soon you've moved mountains. So look within for the answers. Look outside for the inspiration and for the guidance and the support to get there.
Great advice.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we want to thank you for your time. We know your evening is coming to a close there in Spain, so
Family's home. I heard them.
They are. Yeah.
So thank you so much for your time, and it was a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, it's been a real pleasure. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. I love the work you're putting out. I think it's a great message. So keep doing what you're doing. This is fun, and thanks again.